Ispa Aguilesa. Oh, Aguilesa. Oh boy, I even checked that before this class. This one always gets me. 1532 to 1625, living around the time of Da Vinci. She was an Italian Renaissance painter. She worked as a court portrait painter, so she became known as. She grew up kind of in a poor family, but her dad had some connections. And he really tried to get his daughters to get involved in, with the art world. And so I think he was able to pull some strings here and there. He did find some apprenticeships for her to become a part of with some local painters. Her work caught the eye of Michelangelo, and she unofficially, because this wouldn't during this period of time, women couldn't do this, but she did a mentorship with Michelangelo for about 2 years. When we're talking about the Renaissance time for art, the art schools were it was a big education. It wasn't just art. You studied art, anatomy, science, physics, engineering. It was a very all-encompassing um, field of study if you were an artist. Not like today, it was a very different type of thing back then. Art schools were only for men because they did draw from live nudes, and that was considered a no-no during the Renaissance for women to look at a naked man. So therefore women were not allowed in art school. So this was a difficult time. You really had to have connections, or you had to have someone in your family who was also an artist, so that you could work out of their studios. So she was very famous though during her life. um, she got when she worked for King Philip II of Spain, and that's where she really got into doing the portraits, and people got to know her skills. And she was just known for really catching um, the essence of the person that sat for her, and people really sought out her work, and she was famous during her life. So you see, here's a picture of this is three children with a dog.
Wow.
I like that little dog. Here's another one. The artist, her sister's playing chess. You can see, if you look at Da Vinci, that in way off in the background of the painting where the perspective is, you can see off in the distance the mountains here. You can see that she did the same style of art like that. But when she did her portraits, they usually were doing something. There was some kind of, it wasn't the stiff, portrait where the person's just looking at you and they're not doing anything. So, and because of the informal portraits, which a lot of these women tend to do, um, people really like that. They wanted this type of a portrait done of themselves. All right, let's take a look at some more of her artwork here. Here's a self portrait of herself. This is another thing that you will notice with the female artists. Almost all of their self portraits show them in the act of painting, so that people knew that they were artists. This wasn't typical of the male artists doing this type of thing. And that's the picture we were just looking at. Look at the expression of that little girl there. Here's a family portrait she did. I like the clothes. And look at the off in the distance. This landscape back here is really beautiful. And the dog. I think this is her. It doesn't say, I don't see her name here. Or maybe that's her sister. One thing I've noticed looking at some of these women during this time is the clothes. They do clothes really well, and some of the male artists during the Renaissance and the Baroque periods would refer back to some of these women's work to get an idea of how to do some of the robes and the royalty outfits that were around. This is a miniature self-portrait. This is at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, 1556. There's another portrait here. Her mother. Look at that dress. It's quite a dress there. Now this is Campy painting her. This is late 1550s. Here's a portrait of Queen Elizabeth of Spain. You can see, look at the ruffles around the neck. This painting looks like it needs some restoration. Here's Prado Philip II. And this is interesting. It says now recognized as by Anguilla Sola. A lot of these female artists, if they didn't sign the painting that they did, sometimes it would get attributed to one of the male artists of that time. And then, as centuries move on, they suddenly realize, oh no, that belonged to someone else. So you'll see that quite frequently, actually. Now look at this gown. Here's another self-portrait, 1560. The curls in the hair, the eyes are stunning, and the ruffle around the neck. Now, Van Dyck, he did a portrait of her. Now, this is her when this is her when she was 92 years old, and I guess she was still mentally sharp. And she lived a nice long life. This is the Princess of Portugal, about 1550s. Looks as it's in a private collection. I bet this painting's worth something. Look at that collar. This is another self-portrait of herself, but as an older woman, 1610.
Donna, her detail is amazing.
It is. It's stunning. Her work.
It's unbelievable. And especially on the face, it's just.
Yeah, because you think of some of the other painters at this time, not quite this type of realism in the face. You can see why people sought her out to have your portrait done with her. She's just, would do a fantastic job.
Especially because women weren't given the opportunity to be exposed, so it has to be talent.
Oh yeah, yeah. You rise above when you've got the talent. So there's about 50 works that have been attributed to her, and she can be seen all over the world. Even in Baltimore, at the Walters Art Museum, they've got one of her pieces there. And she's all over Madrid, Milan. She's in Milwaukee at the Milwaukee Art Museum. You can find her work there. It's a nice little egg hunt to go look for.